here's your host, Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage.
Oh, yeah!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Sports and Metal Podcast. We are your hosts. This is Aaron Savage. With me, as always, my partner in crime, Mr. Jason Voorhees. And we're pumped. We have a great episode for you tonight. Before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsors. First and foremost, our longest running sponsor, Lots of Rain Watches. Make sure you visit their website, www.lotsofrain.com. That's www.la-touraine.com. Make sure you use our promo code SNM. That's the letters SNM as in sports and metal. And you're going to save a whopping 25% off your purchase at checkout. These are beautiful handcrafted watches, and you cannot get that discount anywhere else. That 25% discount is exclusive to the Sports and Metal Podcast. Make sure you use our promo code SNM. And let's not forget our other sponsor, BetUS.com. Use our affiliate link, bit.ly/sports and metal. You can see it right below me if you're watching live on YouTube or Twitter. Use that affiliate link. You're going to get 125% bonus on your first $100 deposit. So without further ado, let's get started. How are you, Jay?
Dude, awesome, brother.
Awesome. I know this is an exciting time for you and I. We love baseball. It's baseball season. You know, spring is in full force. Over the last week, you've really seen, the trees start to get leaves, the flowers bloom, and probably if you have allergies, you got the sniffles. So, spring has sprung. And on that note, as the seasons change, there's a new Metallica record out, 72 seasons, which we'll get more into later. But before we do, let's start. We talked about baseball season is here. And, dude, the biggest thing everybody's talking about is the pitch clock and the game times, dude. Dude, some of these games have been like 2 hours. It's crazy. Like, if you go to the bathroom, you miss an entire inning in your own house. I'm not talking about at the stadium waiting in a line where you might have missed an inning because an inning took 45 minutes. I'm talking going to the next room to pee and you come back and an inning's passed. That's how fast it's going, dude. What do you think of this pitch clock? What do you think?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of eye-opening because I don't think you ever really realized how drastic it was and how bad it was getting.
Well, we knew how bad it was getting because we've talked about it. But I agree. I don't think we realized how drastic a change it would have been by implementing this pitch clock. That I think I agree with.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, a lot of times I won't even be watching the game. I'll just be scrolling on my phone through the apps. And usually it would take 15 minutes for to get through one batter. Now it's you look up and it's strike one, strike two, strike three. It's almost it's in real time, but it even looks faster when you're not watching it because it's like you said, you go away. Now I haven't been to a game live yet, and I'm sure you haven't because I know we talk a lot. So you would have told me if you went to a Mets game, but I'm sure when I do go, it will be even crazier to go to the game. And then actually, if you get up to leave your seat to go to the bathroom at the game, you might miss 2 innings because of
it's really to that point. It's funny, though. You did hit on one thing, which is a whole other conversation. It's literally strike one, strike two, strike three, which is a problem that still hasn't been addressed, the excessive strikeouts in baseball. But that's a whole other conversation. But, yeah, dude, I'm going to throw some numbers at you. You ready for this, Jay?
Okay.
The average time of a 9-inning game in 2022 was 3 hours and 3 minutes. In 2021, it was 3 hours, 10 minutes. And in 2020, it was 3 hours, 7 minutes. So it was pretty consistent. It was a little over 3 hours in each one of those seasons. The average time of a game in 2023 this year is 2 hours and 37 minutes. That is the lowest average time of game since 1984 when the average time of a game was 2 hours and 35 minutes. That's 30 years ago almost. And here's even crazier numbers. You ready for this? The amount of games under 2.5 hours in 2023 is 32.6% of all games. That number was 3.8% just a year ago. Hey, Dottie, how are you? I believe that's my mother. It says Dottie. I'm not used to her having that. Hey, Ma. Anyway, so the average time of a game last year was the average time of a game that was under 2.5 minutes. The number was 3.8% of games. This year, it's 32.6%. That is drastic, Jason. That is drastic. And here's another crazy stat for you. Last year, the longest games, You had a Mets-Phillies game that, and I'm talking 9-inning games. These were not extra inning games. You had a Mets-Phillies game that ended in a score of Mets 10, Phillies 9. That was the longest game played last year, 4 hours and 46 minutes. The second longest game was a 12-9 Cardinals win over the Yankees, 4 hours and 45 minutes. The third longest game last year was a 10-9 victory, the Brewers over the Rockies, 4 hours, 37 minutes. These were slogs, dude. These are almost 5-hour baseball games, 9-inning games. We're not talking about extra innings or anything. We're talking 4.5, 5-hour, 9-inning games. The longest game this year was a 10-9 Blue Jays win over the Cardinals, which was completed in 3 hours and 38 minutes. The third longest game this year was only 3 hours and 12 minutes. That is about what the average game was last year, and that's the third longest game this year. These numbers are crazy. I love it. I love it. Look, being like a baseball fanatic that I am, I don't mind sitting through a 4.5-hour game. I actually love it. It sometimes sometimes I would put a game on when I'm going to bed. You know, I like having sound when I go to sleep. And like if the game was 5 hours and it went to like 1 a.m, I was down with that. I'd wake up and check the score. The game was still going. So as a baseball fanatic, I loved it. But I know most people aren't going to agree with me on that. So for the spirit of the average fan and the sport in general, I think this is great for the game. It's like soccer now. Dude, it's 2.5 hours. You're in and out. Now, there's a whole other conversation. You know, these teams are losing millions of dollars in concessions, because games are so short. You know, there's something I mean, I don't think they thought that through. I think it's still healthier for the game.
No, but I did see actually it was a Philly that came out and called out Major League Baseball. Well, in general, called out actually a few teams for actually lengthening the beer sales into the 8th inning as opposed to ending in the 7th inning. And he made a great point. If the games are that much shorter and you actually now increase the beer sales to the next inning, people are going to be leaving the ballpark and getting DUIs.
Yeah, but here's the thing. I see his point. It's a fair point. And good for him for, being mature for a young guy. You know, how many guys that are like 24, 25 you even think would just come out and say that? Because that's the age where they are drinking and partying, right? But that being said, I don't care about that. I think I'm fine with them extending it to the 8th inning. They got to make money. And here's what you're not considering. Dude, you went to games your whole life. When they're making last beer call in the 7th inning, everybody's double fisting. Nobody's getting one beer. If you're drinking beer, everybody that's there is getting 2 beers, so they have one for the 8th and the 9th inning, knowing that they're not going to sell beer anymore. And then of those people, plus the people who didn't get the beers, what percentage of those fans are going out to the parking lot, reopening their cooler that's in the back of their car and having another beer or two while they wait for the traffic to clear out? So, I mean, it's short-sighted. I respect him for that. It's mature of him, but it's a moot point. Honestly, dude, people who are drinking beer are drinking it anyway. And at the end of the day, there's got to be some responsibility. You're responsible for yourself, and it's just the reality of it. It's just the reality of it. I don't think extending the beer sales from the 7th to the 8th inning it's negligible at best if there's any difference at all.
We could disagree on that, but I will say when I do go to a game, I'm going to have to change my habits because I already have a problem with like going to the bathroom a lot. I'm going to have to make sure I don't drink anything.
Because you're going to miss the game.
Because the lines, the lines in the restrooms are always long, regardless of what inning it is. So I'm going to have to kind of change my behaviors going before I go to the games to make sure that, I can actually watch the entire game and not have to get up. So.
Yep. Anyway, before we bring our big guest out this week, who's going to be actually joining the show for a monthly segment, let's talk about these Tampa Bay Rays. Jay, they're 13-0. I mean, I'd have to double check, but I'm pretty sure that ties the modern day record to open a season.
It said it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm right, dude. That's crazy. I mean, this team, they do it every year, and it's like they're like the Miami Dolphins no-name defense in the 70s. I mean, who are these guys? Right? It's pretty impressive that they come out and do this every year.
So there's only one way that they can do that. Because their payroll is always in the bottom.
That's what I mean.
Of Major League Baseball. So they obviously have an extremely stellar team as far as their drafts and their development team of developing talent. And they do get a lot of those, Dominican players and the South, Brazil, and they hit that kind of market, so they're very good at that. But honestly, like, to be able to compete like that against teams like the Yankees and the Red Sox that have these, mega payrolls, it just shows you how good they are as far as developing talent. Because I don't see the Pittsburgh Pirates doing that, and I don't see other teams that have low payrolls doing
Well,
that.
yeah, it's all about the talent that they develop. It kind of reminds me of the Oakland Athletics, in the 90s, early 2000s,
Like,
when they had Zito, Mulder, Hudson, Giambi, Tejada, and basically they became like a farm team for the Yankees. but I mean, they were developing talent at an elite level. Billy Beane, I mean, I guess he was there at that point. It was like, I think it was like pre-Moneyball, but I'm pretty sure he was the GM.
Yeah, it was
the time.
Before, but it was right around then.
Yeah, but I think he was the GM already. Anyway, it's impressive, Tampa Bay. But let's bring out our guest. We are a huge fan. He's a good friend of the show. He has written for Guitar World magazine. He's written many heavy metal books, including I'm the Man, Scott Ian's autobiography, Louder Than Hell, amongst other great metal books, his Al Jorgensen book. Please welcome to the show, who's going to be joining us once a month now, every second Friday of the month, Mr. John Wiederhorn. How are you, John?
Good. Hey, guys.
Hey, we're happy to have you. What's going on?
Happy to do it. Just keeping busy, trying to balance the writing and the assignment pitching with the watching sports. You got the Rangers coming up in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and
Yes.
holy shit, I haven't been able to watch a Rangers game all year because my damn Xfinity channel doesn't have the Sports New York. So
Yeah.
that's what they're on, right? That's why they killed me. So I've just like been in a kind of this black hole, and now they're going to be televised, so I'm going to have to tune into the playoffs and see him make it through a round or two.
Absolutely. I'm not a big hockey guy, but I'll be rooting for him for you, John.
All
Absolutely.
right. And holy
listen,
shit, the Yankees! I'm going to Sunday's game, so I'm looking
Awesome.
forward to
That's
that.
awesome.
Taking my son. Yeah.
Awesome. I was going to say,
But
why don't you
I
just
guess I'm not
remind the
supposed to talk about
audience?
sports. I'm the metal guy.
No, that's fine. Anything you want to talk about, but why don't you just like tell the audience, in case they're not familiar with you from last time you were on, or they haven't read any of your books, just tell the audience again about yourself and what you've done and what you're working on.
Oh, okay. Well, mostly working as an author these days, working with different artists on their biographies. I did, like you mentioned, Scott Ian's biography, I'm the Man, which was pretty well received. Roger Moret from Agnostic Front wrote his book with him, and that was great. And right now I'm working with Marty Friedman from he did 10 years with Megadeth.
Yep.
And then at the prime of his career, dropped everything and said, I want to go play J-pop in Japan.
Yep.
Like, what kind of a Westerner, like a American guy goes and says, I'm going to Japan. I kind of speak the language, but I love their music and I want to be a part of that scene. And he became a rock star over there.
Yeah.
He's doing game shows and that's a story that I thought was super interesting. Everyone in Megadeth, almost everyone's done a book already. Dave Ellefson did one and Mustaine's done two, but I think Marty brings a different feel to the whole thing. He's totally opening up and talking, honestly about those years with Megadeth, which were bittersweet. Some great things happened and some not so great things, and then he just had it. He's like, I love other kinds of music, and I love Japan, and I'm not gonna leave my career without trying this out. So he went to Japan and gradually was accepted in the scene and became the superstar guitarist. Got his own game show, where Rock Fukushima, I think they called it. I might have the wrong. I think it's Fukushima. Anyway, but yeah. So he had this show where he mixed these Western rock songs with Japanese classic melodies and run back and forth across the stage. And there was his Japanese sidekick there who was also shredding on the guitar. And Japanese shows are just like surreal drug fests anyway. So it's, they make American game shows look like something from the 1950s.
Yeah.
But It's a trip, and seeing him the other day, he opened for Queensryche in New York, and I got the chance to see him. You know, he doesn't do the States very much. Man, it's just his band is exciting to watch, and they're really energetic. Everybody's smiling, so you don't get this like thrash metal sneering the whole time. And he's just having a blast, and he can shred like Steve Vai,
Yeah.
but play these great melodies, partially influenced by Japanese music, partially influenced by Ashkenazi Jewish or Hebraic music, and partially just from Western pop. And it's amazing. The guy's just awesome. And actually, YouTube has a really good solo show of his on from about a week ago.
Oh
And
wow. I'll have to
it's a
check it
long
out.
shot of the stage, but the sound is really, really good. So anybody who wants to check it out, the guy's incredible. So yeah, we're working on a book together now, and hope to have we'll have it done this year. Hopefully, it'll be out by the end of the year or early next.
Awesome. What were you
No,
saying,
So that's
Jay?
cool.
no, no. I was just going to ask you, John. Staying on that same theme. Did you get to see Marty Friedman just a couple weeks ago reuniting with Megadeth? Because that to
Oh,
me was me
yeah,
like the
that was a
ultimate.
big thing too in Budokan.
I,
Megadeth were supposed to play Budokan once before with Marty, and Mustaine had just undergone a relapse and had to pull out of the whole tour of the Far East. And here, it's not such a big deal when an artist has a drug problem or goes into alcohol rehab or whatever. But in Japan, it's a real stain on their career, and it's also shameful to the promoters. So Megadeth lost a lot of face when that happened, and Marty points that out in his book. He was very upset about it, and his dream was to play the Budokan because the
Sure.
Budokan is like Madison Square Garden here. So to finally be able to do 3 songs there with Megadeth was a real treat for him, and that's the first time he's reunited with them in I think 23 years.
Yeah.
But don't expect more because he's uh he's a national ambassador of American culture for Japanese music now, and is married to a woman in the Japanese Philharmonic, a violinist, and composes for these giant governmental events. So he's really entrenched himself, and I don't think a Megadeth paycheck is gonna gonna
Gonna sway him.
be comparable to yeah. He's really made it over there, and good for him. I mean, it's an example of someone who had a far-fetched goal and just dug his feet in and said, "I'm just going to do this. I'm gonna work hard. I'm gonna make it happen." And he did, and he's still putting out metal albums, and some of them are they have Japanese uh, melodies through them, but they're definitely metal. And then he's doing this J-pop stuff and touring with huge stars and writing orchestral stuff. I mean, he's got it all. It's great. I'm real happy for him, and he's a real down to earth dude too, which is cool.
That's amazing. I think you mentioned it to it the last time that you were on the show, but when should we expect the book?
We're working on it now. We have a publisher interested, so we pretty much have a deal. It's just a matter of finishing it and getting it on the schedule for release. So
Ah,
probably early next year, although they might push it to the end of this year if they can fit it in the schedule, which would be pretty cool. But
I can't wait. I can't wait for that one. That's awesome. But I'll
cool,
tell you,
cool.
there's one of the things I wanted to get into with you, John. Right now, we are in a period where there's a ton of new metal, and especially
Yeah,
today, one of the biggest albums of anticipation in a long time, the new Metallica 72
it should be a
Seasons.
national holiday
I
today.
mean,
My
really, it's
God,
Metallica Day.
72 seasons. Everybody should have taken the day off school and sat and listened to that 6-hour record. You
Yeah.
know, and
Well,
that's one thing I don't want to call it a beef. Metallica could do whatever the hell they want to do, and it's a really great record. It holds up, but it's a long listen. And if they'd done it in not necessarily 2 albums the way Guns N' Roses did, or the way Smashing Pumpkins did, no, I guess the Pumpkins album came out. Melancholy was one fell swoop.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this is like 80 minutes plus of listening, and it's not simple music. Like there are so many rhythmic changes. It's so thrashy, it's so heavy, and it's really good, and it's hard to absorb in one long 80-minute sitting with the attention spans of kids today. So I'd advise listen to half of it for like a week straight,
And then go to
and
the
then
other
go
half.
on to the second half of it.
Well, that was kind of what I was
That would
going to get
just
into.
be
What do you think of the record? Like, I mean, do you like it? Do you dig it?
yeah. Yeah, I think it's tremendous. I mean, I liked Hardwired to Self-Destruct a lot, and I really like Death Magnetic. Although that took me a little while to get into because I didn't think the production
The
was
production
as
is what
great.
ruined it for me. That's
Yeah,
really what
yeah.
ruined it for me.
I don't understand what the production was going. It was just so compressed and
It was
over
so
distorted.
compressed that you can't hear it unless you're have like a really expensive stereo system. If you're like on any average stereo system listening to that record, it distorts, speakers crack, terrible sound. It's a wall of
Absolutely.
sound too. Everything is so, like you said, compressed. You can't differentiate any of the nuances of the music. It's all just
Right.
in your face.
But
And
there's
it had
I mean, there's
potential.
really good songs on that.
Mm,
They fix that up a bit with Hardwired, but
yeah.
this is really produced well.
Yep.
And actually, I'm not sure, but it sounds to me like the distortion is toned down a little bit, or maybe the mids aren't scooped the way some bands scoop their mids. Like Pantera were all about scooping the mids. Um, I'm not sure what the exact settings are, but it feels like the distortion is a little lower, still a lot of crunch, but the definition of sound for all the instruments is totally there.
Yes.
Like
You
that
could
was a problem with
differentiate.
Injustice for All. You couldn't hear the bass. On
Yeah.
this, you can hear Robert Trujillo right throughout it, and it just rocks.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I still like Hardwired a little bit more, but
Hmm.
this record has plenty of time to grow on me. One thing I love about this new record, I love on Lux Eterna and the new track
Mm.
that just came out today, Chasing Light. I love how James is hitting those higher notes, and it kind of harkens back to like Kill 'Em All as far as his vocal range. He's
Hmm.
getting up there a little bit. I really dig that. The one criticism I have, if I have one, anything is better than Saint Anger, right? So everything since Saint Anger has been on an upward trajectory. But that being said, also everything since Saint Anger has become a little bit formulaic to me. And what I mean by that is not formulaic in the AC/DC sense of formulaic, where it's like 4/4 time, head bopping, not like that. But what I mean is like you said, all the rhythmic changes and the stop starts and the staccato. It's almost like take it easy. And some of these songs, like the last track on the new record, it's 11 minutes.
I
That could
know,
be a
yeah.
5-minute song. If you take the best parts of that song, 5 minutes. And even Chasing Light, which is probably my favorite song on the album, it opens with this real thrashy riff, and I'm waiting for it to just kick in and continue with that riff, and then all of a sudden it kind of slows down. It has a time change, and I just don't know why. Like the one thing I loved about the first track, Lux Eterna, was that it stayed with the same tempo throughout the track, and it kind of kicked ass. And I'd love to see more of that from Metallica. But again, I mean, I digress. Metallica has earned the right to do whatever they want to do. I mean, at
Yeah,
this point,
no,
they're just
exactly.
jamming. At this point, they're just jamming and they're putting it out. And if we want to get it, we can get it. And if not, fuck it.
It's almost like they're writing these super long songs and they're saying, "This is awesome. Should we
Yeah,
cut it down? Fuck it. Let's just write another one."
yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly. But
but I
if
totally
that's
get
my
what you mean
criticism,
about the
that's the one.
formulaic thing. That's why Death Magnetic kind of hit me wrong at first because it sounded so much like they wanted to replicate Injustice for All.
Yeah,
And it was I won't say it was formulaic, but it had all those trademark sounds and it's like they went from such a different, you know, load and reload and Saint Anger to Death Magnetic. And I love to see him go back to thrash. No, don't get me wrong, but it seemed like it wasn't just thrash, it was prog thrash. And then
yeah,
you hit Hardwired, which was a little more like Kill 'Em All or Ride the Lightning, less progressive. But now, now it seems they've ramped it up again and gone back to that proggy,
yeah, yeah. Well, I
crazy,
think
crazy
you
thrash
nailed
sound.
it. I
But
think
I think
that's
I'm gonna love it. I think it's gonna all grow on me.
I do too. I do.
And
It's too early for me to fully press judgment, but I think you kind of nailed what I loved about Hardwired. It had those thrash elements and it had its proggy elements, but it also was a little more concise. Like songs like Now That We're Dead. Like, I'm not one of these guys that just hated the Black Album. I just accepted it for what it was, and I still think it's a freaking kick-ass record. I
Yeah.
love the Black Album. I love Ride the Lightning, and I love the Black Album. I'm not like one of these holier than thou gatekeeping Metallica fans. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love what they do. I take it for what it is. And I like Hardwired gave us like some of that. Like, Now That We're Dead could fit right on the Black Album to me. And I love the way
Even
that
even the title track could have been on Kill 'Em All. It was a
absolutely
pretty
and,
simple and
yep. Yeah, and
driving
concise to the
killer
point.
track.
And I love the
Yeah,
way they
yeah.
were able to translate Now That We're Dead into the live performance when they
Mhm.
all got on the bongo drums. I mean, you can't appreciate that if you watch it on YouTube or something. You've got to like you remember that, Jason. That was epic, especially seeing it live. It was so bombastic. And
Yeah, they
I
put
thought
on a
Hardwired really
spectacle
delivered.
now.
What's that?
It's hard for them to pull the set lists together, I imagine, because they've got to do all the standards, but
Yes.
you also they're writing some really great new stuff,
Yeah.
and it's probably hard for them to play Death Magnetic tracks now, and some of those were really really solid, even with the production.
Yeah.
So God bless them, man. This tour with Pantera is going to be monstrous.
Unbelievable.
I have a little bit of a different take, I think, than you guys. I mean, you guys have kind of stole the thunder here. I honestly, I think I'm a little different than Aaron. Like, I loved Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Yes, this one is more like lengthy music, but that's kind of more up my alley because my favorite album of Metallica growing up was And Justice for All. And if you look at Injustice for All, those songs are a lot longer. They have that lengthy type.
Right.
Yeah, they're proggy, very proggy.
What I'll say is, I feel like this is kind of like Injustice for All, but with the production value of the Black Album and the Load album, because the Black Album and Load, production wise, I thought were the two best sounding Metallica albums as far as sound. And I think this album is kind of more up that alley, but it also has those old school thrash elements, which I like too. So I think the album, the reason why maybe Aaron right now is saying, yeah, it's not there yet. I think these lengthy albums, they take a while to grow on you.
And I agree with that. And I agree. I'm not criticizing it, Jay. I'm like I said, to get what we're getting from Metallica at this point in their careers, sign me up any day of the week.
Yeah, most bands are dialing it in at this point. They're like, well, if we're not going to make $1 million in royalties with this record because everybody's just going to stream it, then we're going to spend a week in the studio and crank something out and tour for a year.
Yeah.
But they put a lot of effort, a lot of time
into it. Yep.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is something that reflects their struggles too. Their personal issues, and it comes across as very authentic and very poignant.
You're right about that. That's because that's another criticism of bands when they get into the stage of a career of a Metallica. Like, you always talk about how bands were young and hungry. A lot of times you say a band has their whole life to write their first record, and then they have to try to match it with their second record. Metallica has transcended that, because while Metallica was writing about what they were writing about when they were a young, hungry band, they've taken that and they're writing music that to me is just as tasteful, organic, and hungry as what they were writing then, just with slightly different subject matter. It's not like it's not bloated, I guess is what I'm looking for. The way to describe it. It's not.
I mean, when
in other words, it's authentic, like you said.
These guys were in there. They weren't even 20 when Kill 'Em All came out, right? So
yeah.
So then they're doing Ride the Lightning. They're still super young, and they're writing off lyrical themes from like H.P. Lovecraft, and referring to the Four Horsemen and talking about the Passover
Creeping Death.
So you got the which is pretty funny because it's not like the whole story of Passover. So
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's like you put it on during the Passover Seder at the and all the Jewish metalheads are having a feast. But it reminds me of something Scott Ian told me when we were talking. He's like, I used to write about Stephen King a lot, and I still love Stephen King, but I didn't know what else to write about. All I knew to write about was what I loved, and I loved horror, and I loved other music, so I wrote about bands and music. And now I've been married, I've had a kid, I've lived, I've you know faced relatives dying and friends being ill and addiction, not his own, but he says there's just so much more out there that life experience has brought to the table as subject matter.
And I kind of was going there, like it's still real with Metallica. Like every song on this new record is very like introspective. It's like it's chapters of James Hetfield's life and his existence.
Yeah.
Um, Chasing Light, Lux Eterna. What's the last song on the record? The 11-minute epic. I'm forgetting the title. Hang on.
I know I got to open up my my Google.
Yeah. Because I don't want to say it wrong. It's an Italian word.
Morana or something.
Morana. Yeah. I mean, if you know the meaning of that word, it means a female obsession, a female lover. And if you listen to the lyrics, he's talking about his relationship with Misery, and that's his mistress. And like that, James Hetfield, all the songs come from that place. I mean, I'll even give him that, like on the Saint Anger record. I thought it was ingenious when he said, my lifestyle determines my death style. As juvenile as it sounds, it's also freaking ingenious to me, right? My
Except
lifestyle.
The one, what don't kill you makes you more strong.
Yeah.
It's pretty childish.
But you get my point.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, James. Yeah, I totally agree. And I mean, the think of the song Screaming Suicide.
Yep.
It's kind of harrowing. I mean, they had to put out a statement saying, this is in no way a celebration of suicide, which is obvious, but it's a situation now that's with the mental health and of young people in America, not even just young people, so many people facing depression, so many people taking their lives, and to put a song out like that, I just think it was haunting. The first time I heard it, I got chills, and it's a really well done song too. So kudos. I think I'm gonna love the whole album once I mean, maybe there's a couple filler tracks, but I don't know.
I agree.
I'd still listen to the first half.
Even the album title, 72 Seasons, is a reference to the first 18 years of one's life. You live 72 seasons. I just think it's really cool. I think it's James Hetfield really just looking back on his youth and everything. I think it's an awesome record. Like I said, there's certain aspects of it that need to grow on me, but I think it will. I'm impressed. So I think we all are excited for the new Metallica. But there's other albums that came out, like you said before we went live. The new Overkill was overshadowed, but was also released today.
That was my line. But
yes, I said that. You said it backstage. Yeah,
all right.
Yeah, I gave you credit. Don't worry. But what do you think? Have you had a chance to listen to the new Overkill?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's solid. I haven't broken it in the way I should, but having listened to it a couple times, I'm like, oh yeah, they're still rocking. Yep. Bobby's still got that drive and that piercing vocal, and I'm not sure who their lead guitarist is now, but for a little while they were using Phil Demmel from Machine Head, but I don't think he's on the record. But Jason Bittner is on drums, and he's great. It's really cool the way like all these guys from the new wave of American heavy metal who didn't still move on with their bands are now with like Flotsam and Jetsam and with Overkill, and they've like moved on to the who's playing the Sacred Reich now. Not sure. But anyway, yeah, so it's good for them, and frickin' Anthrax's new guitarist John Dene, lead guitarist, amazing. Not new because he's been there now for 10 years probably. But it's so funny. I saw them just maybe a month and a half ago or so in Connecticut, and I was hanging out with John a little bit. And he's still astounded that he's in the band. I mean, he was like down in a few. He's like, dude, I got to play with my favorite band. he's just like loving it. And that's great. That's what it should all be about. Instead of having these jaded players who are forced to do the same thing, because what else are they going to do? And you can feel it, when these guys don't really really have it in their blood to do what they do anymore.
Yep. What were you saying, Jay?
You expect any new material from Anthrax? Because that's the band I'm waiting to hear a new album from.
Yeah, they're working on stuff. Charlie's got a bunch of stuff written right now. He's a little busy with Pantera. So, he's that's the priority. And Scott I think he's going out with Mr. Bungle. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he was on the album, so I'm pretty
Yes,
sure
he
he's on
was.
that tour.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they're gonna get back and finish working on this next record. But man, Joey sounds great live, and band's on fire. The 40th anniversary was just awesome, and it'd be great to see him put out a couple, 3 more solid records. I mean, I don't know how many more they could do than that, since but hell, hey, the Stones are still going on. Yeah. So, God bless him. Everybody from the Big Four is still going strong, except unfortunately Slayer, and maybe that's a segue to the fact that we're about to well, I wouldn't call it a celebration, but on I think it's May 10th is the 10th anniversary of Jeff Hanneman's death.
Yes.
It may not be the 10th, but it's in May. And I actually just did a piece for Metal Hammer where I talked to Kerry and a bunch of guys who were close to Jeff. And it's interesting that there's really still been this devotion to Jeff as a songwriter and as a player from the fans. Like they've deified him to an extent. The way that happens when like a Randy Rhoads dies in a plane crash, or God forbid someone passes too soon. But yeah, but Jeff was the centerpiece of that band when it came to all the great songs and the mixing the ferocity of hardcore with these catchy melodies that were still minor key and weird, but you couldn't get out of your head. And I mean, he was an important part of that band to the point where I would say Repentless is a good album, but it's a Kerry King album. It's not a Jeff Hanneman record, and you can tell.
100%. Yep. Speaking of Charlie with Pantera, what do you think of the reunion? Or the tribute, whatever you want to refer to it as?
I think they should have. That's the only problem I have, is that someone said, let's call this Pantera. I don't know if that came from a promoter or management, but God damn, they sound good. They're on
really
fire. Good. And they picked the best guys for the gig. I mean, Zakk Wylde is a tremendous guitarist, and it's really funny. He said that he has to play differently because he's playing like Dime. It's fair enough. He's not Dime. Mm-hmm. But I asked him, well, you must have known these songs already. And he starts laughing. He's like, man, when we Black Label toured with Anthrax and Frankie Bello comes up to me, he's like, all those songs already, right? And I'm like, what, are you kidding? You think I sit around and like learn Pantera songs and Dime solos? Man, I couldn't even play Walk right now, so
yeah.
You had to sit down and learn all the tunes, and he had to go to YouTube actually to get some of the solo parts down, because they were on record, they were distorted and fast, and I mean, of course, most of it just because he's a brilliant guitarist, but he totally admitted that he turned to YouTube for those occasional
that's awesome,
occasional licks.
I think the thing that I'm finding most impressive is the way Phil sounds.
Phil sounds great. And if you've seen the videos, it is such a tribute. I mean, Zach's wearing this vest, and it's full of patches of Dime and Vinny, and it says Cowboys from Hell on the back, and it's like, sorry about that. That's the telemarketer.
I didn't even notice it.
Oh, you didn't? All right.
Nope, not at all.
It's not hanging up. Okay. So, but what it comes down to, I think, is that it's a real tribute, and Zach said, some people are naysaying this and saying it's not really Pantera, and of course it's not Vinny and Dime, but it's like the Experience Hendrix project. They asked these accomplished players to come up and play Hendrix tunes, and they do it out of reverence for the artist and for the music. and the music lives on, and it's a genuine, sincere thing. It's not just a cash grab. I don't think. I mean, I'm sure people are making loads of money, but the only issue I would have is that it did not look like Vinny ever wanted this to happen, and that's it's what it is now because his people have greenlit it, and
Yeah.
his family's making money from it, and the shows are really good tributes. I just think that he just never made up with
Yeah,
with Phil,
that's
and
clearly the
and
case.
yeah, and it's a shame because it could have happened, but it didn't, and better to have it now, when you've got these two players who were huge fans and friends. Zach used to hang with Dime all the time. He considered him his best friend,
Yep.
and Charlie and Vinny were super tight, and they'd all toured together. So it just if they were going to do it, these are the guys they had to do it with, and it comes across as genuine. I mean, I love it. I can't wait to see them play around here.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. We were talking about the new Overkill. Metal Church just released a single from their upcoming album. Have you had a chance to hear that?
I haven't, and I feel badly because man, Metal Church were like one of the heaviest bands out of Seattle back in the day, before the days of grunge. Like, you had Metal Church, and I mean, I guess Queensryche, and who else was in Seattle that was a metal force? There was like one other band I can't think of anymore. But yeah, they were super heavy band back in the day, and I haven't heard the new stuff. No, but you mentioned that it sounds a little like Overkill.
Yeah, that's why I was asking. To me, it sounds like Overkill. I mean, when you get a chance to listen to it, shoot me a message. I want to know your opinion.
Sure. Well, that's
But
probably
I
not a
think
bad
I
thing.
think it's kick ass. I think you're gonna like it. And the album coming out, it's gonna be called Congregation of Annihilation. It's due to come out May 26th, so that's something to look forward to.
There's also some really cool underground stuff that's coming out. Like this Jesus Piece record is so fierce and heavy, and
I'm gonna have to
it's
check
got
that
these
out.
metal parts mixed with hardcore. That seems to be what I hear now happening is, kind of like we've had hardcore metal for a long time, and there have been, bands that have metalcore was a big thing, deathcore. But now I hear bands that come from like a post-hardcore place that was like really in their blood, embracing metal and incorporating that into what they're doing with Nails and Dead Body, which features a former drummer of Nails. Dead Body are great. That's a fucking really, really cool band. They just did a record, and it's I don't know if it's both guys from Twitching Tongues. It might be, but that's another cool band who kind of fall into that hardcore meets metal aesthetic, and it's really cool stuff. From Hell fit in there, although I don't think they've done anything new recently. But there's stuff going on in the underground that's pretty exciting. So I think it's a decent time for metal, man. I think it's there's a lot of good stuff going around, and finally some really good shows coming through.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our good friends Heaven's Edge, they have a good new album coming out. I don't know if you heard their new tracks.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I don't know how much that's. I don't think that's really your genre, John. But I think definitely check it out. Are you familiar with Heaven's Edge?
Maybe I should be, but no, I'm
Yeah,
not.
I
Is
mean
it
they were they're friends of the show. They're from the Philadelphia area.
Okay.
They used to play the Trocadero in Philly all the time. They were a band that had like they were like Philly's Bon Jovi, basically. That was the way they were being
Okay.
marketed. They signed a
Well,
contract.
Hailstorm came from Philly too, right?
What's that?
Hailstorm or Philly.
Yeah.
Philly
But
native.
Heaven's Edge is they're from that same era.
Okay.
They were like one of the last bands that got signed to Columbia Records right when grunge hit. They signed their contract. They signed their record deal maybe in '89 or something like that. '90, yeah, it had to be '89. And their bass player Gigi got shot at a show by a crazed fan. So he was hospitalized, and that delayed the release of their record about a year. So that did them in. By the time the record came out, Columbia had already, shifted their attention to Alice in Chains.
That's awesome.
It's like that story
Yeah.
Jane Elaine always told. He went into the offices at Columbia and they had the big cherry pie poster on the wall. And they
Yeah.
were everything was warrant. And a couple years later, when he went back and they were about to put the Dog Eat Dog record out, he went in there and he looked up, and all of a sudden he realized, hey, we're not a priority anymore. He saw the Alice in Chains, similar to Heaven's Edge. But
Yeah.
anyway, after all these years, they've reunited. They have a great record coming out, and I highly recommend. I mean, I know it's not real your genre, but what I've heard so far, it's freaking awesome. It's a really good record. What's the name of the record again coming out, Jay? I'm drawing a blank on it. It's a shame. But anyway, check it out. Heaven's Edge. They have a really cool ballad that they just released. It's called What Could Have Been. And I just think it's very poignant because, like the story I just told you, what could have been, if everything had lined up differently. And the song is just very nostalgic, and it's a cool track. But I recommend everybody check that out if you're into that more, 80s glam style. Reggie Wu is an amazing guitar player. I mean, he's a shredder. He actually gave Jason guitar lessons.
Yeah, he's
Well, I just saw Queensryche, so I'm not beyond that 80s hair sound,
Yeah, I know. But yeah, Heaven's Edge, I mean, definitely check out What Could Have Been. It's an awesome track. They have another track that they put out from their upcoming album. It's called what's it called, Jay? The other track?
I brought up too.
Had It Up to Here or something. I don't remember, but it's a pretty cool track too. Anyway, John, before we close out the show tonight, is there anything that you want our fans to check out? Like, what should everybody be looking for right now in the metal world? Like, give us something that like only you could tell us.
Wow, only I'll put the pressure on. Now I
You're
draw
our
blank.
resident metal expert, John.
I mean, I already plugged a Dead Body, and
yes, you did.
but
I'm putting you on the spot here.
Did I mention the this is how long ago, or how short-term memory my brain is. Did I mention the In Flames record last time I was on? Because I think that's about to hit, or is just hit.
I don't think so.
They're back in form. They're playing, really fast melodic death metal again, which is great. But I might have mentioned them like 2 months ago when I was on.
Possible.
I shared it with Aaron. I shared In Flames because I forgot that you were a huge In Flames fan. I was supposed to see In Flames with Death and Lamb of God, but they had during COVID, so I didn't get. I was actually pissed off because I was looking forward to that. I've become more and more of a death metal fan. I was telling Aaron, like last year, 2012, because we didn't get to talk about our top albums of last year. But my favorite album of 2022 was was death metal, and Aaron was like, "You would have never known it because I'm not a death metal guy." But Arch Enemy, like the new album was like phenomenal.
Oh, that's a good record. She sounds so good on that too, doesn't she?
Oh, she's phenomenal. Like her vocal range, it reminds me of like. She sounds like Lizzie Hale, when she does her clean vocals, and like Lamb of God when she does the guttural vocals.
Yeah,
like,
and they've definitely worked around her vocal abilities too with the guitar parts. Like some of them are just blazing, and then they've also got these really tasteful melodies that Michael Amott's got in there, and it's it works really well. That's a cool record. Speaking of, there's a connection because Angelo Gasso used to have a huge fandom with Carcass, and was one of the reasons that Michael Amott reunited with Carcass a little while ago. But they played last night in New York, which I'm kicking myself for missing. But they put on one of the best shows I've seen this year. They played earlier, and that new album of theirs, I thought was one of the best records of last year. Like those, they can still, I mean, they're from like the 90s, and they're still cranking out the grindcore.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, John,
I guess not grindcore; it's more like death metal. But the musicality is so good, and they're so tight.
I got you. Anyway, John, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. As we said, John's going to be joining us once per month. For a special segment like we just did. He's going to be the resident metal expert joining us on Sports and Metal. That being said, we hope everybody enjoyed the show. Once again, I got to give a shout out to our sponsors. Make sure you check out La Terrain Watches. go to their website, www.latourain.com. That's LA-TOURAINE.com. Use our promo code SNM. That's the letters SNM as in sports and metal to save a whopping 25% off your handcrafted watch. You're not going to get that discount anywhere else. Also, make sure you check out betus.com. Use our affiliate link. You can see it below me if you're watching live. If you're listening later on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, go to the description in the podcast. You'll be able to see the affiliate link there. You're going to get 125% bonus on your first $100 deposit. Anyway, John, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. You know, we love
Thanks
you,
so much
and
for having
we
me
want to
on.
get together soon and, you know, go see a show with you. We have to. All right?
Yeah, that'll be a blast.
Absolutely.
I know.
Anyway,
I
guys,
think
go on.
we
Go
met
on.
during COVID, so it was like not,
Yeah.
you know, nobody did anything
We
together
could
then.
do it.
But
Yeah. Well, now we're going
all
to have
right.
to do it. Anyway, guys, we hope you enjoyed the show. As always, this is Aaron Savage, Jason Voorhees, and tonight, John Wiederhorn signing off. Rock on.
Peace out.
And that's our show. Tune in next time for more Sports and Metal with Jason Voorhees and Aaron Savage. Ooh, yeah! Got something to say? Hit us up at sportsandmetal0423 at yahoo.com or on Twitter at sportsandmetal.